In the 2022 film Babylon, written and directed by Damien Chazelle, we see a large cast of characters navigating the transition of Hollywood from silent to sound films in the 1920s. The film captures their trials, successes, and eventual fall from grace, while meditating on the power of cinema over our imagination. In this video, we'll look at how the film creates cinematic shots that convey mood, atmosphere, and narrative elements. Per usual, there will be spoilers to the story of Babylon, so I recommend checking it out before proceeding further. As a general story overview, the film tracks with several characters including Manny Torres, played by Diego Calva, who climbs the ranks of Hollywood, rubbing shoulders with up-and-coming star Nellie Leroy, played by Margot Robbie, and established screen star Jack Conrad, played by Brad Pitt. Their paths crisscross over the years as they make different choices with their careers and personal lives that play out against the backdrop of a changing Hollywood studio system. So to look at how the film constructs cinematic shots, we can analyze a shot based on its composition, camera placement, staging, lens choice, lighting, use of mise-en-scène, and other narrative elements. In cinematic shot number 1, we see Manny on a mission to retrieve an extra camera for a film shoot. Manny is framed in the midground by the grid lines of the shop window with his eye line directed toward the camera shop clerk, who's busy writing on a notepad. The camera is over the shoulder of the clerk, pointed toward Manny, so we get a three-quarter view of Manny's face. Both the background shop space behind Manny and the clerk in the foreground are slightly out of focus, so our eyes go directly to Manny, who is a little towards screen left from the center of the frame. Outdoor lighting acts as the main source light, coming from screen right, pouring through the Venetian blinds and windows, acting as a key light on Manny. There's an indoor light hanging from the ceiling on screen left, behind Manny, that helps to illuminate the space behind him. The lens could be slightly wider than a 50mm lens to show us the environment around Manny and the clerk. In cinematic shot number 2, we see the reverse shot from shot number 1, where the camera is now behind Manny and pointed toward the clerk. We see the back of Manny's head and he's slightly out of focus. Our eyes go directly to the clerk in the midground and he is in focus. The perspective lines of the grid, like window, align diagonally across the frame, creating some sense of spatial depth. The eye line of the clerk is directed toward Manny's eyes, helping us to zero in on their conversation. The main source of light is the outdoor light pouring through the Venetian blinds and window on screen left, matching the lighting design from shot number 1. It also helps to create a sense of isolating us in this space because we can't see outside the window. In cinematic shot number 3, the camera frames Nellie Leroy in a medium close-up and an upshot. In the scene, Nellie is on her first acting job on set, and the director asks her to display a series of emotions for the silent film being shot. The background elements, including the makeshift set and onlooking crew employees, are blurred, so our eyes focus in on Nellie. At the same time, we see two spotlights acting as source lights that motivate backlighting and edge lights on Nellie's hair and silhouette. These lights are also creating a slight lens flare, adding to the dizzying atmosphere on set, putting us in Nellie's shoes. The perspective lines of the set in the background also help us to see the slight three-point perspective in the shot. The lens is likely a longer lens, helping us to focus in on Nellie, while limiting our view of the surrounding set. Nellie's eye line is directed upward to screen left, to somewhere off-screen as she performs for the camera. In cinematic shot number 4, Manny is in the center of the frame near sunset on a film shoot. The background terrain is out of focus, guiding us to zero in on Manny and his on-camera acting. Around Manny, there are several on-set laborers who are not as entranced by the on-set filmmaking magic as Manny. The primary source of lighting is the sunset coming from screen left, creating a warm glow in the environment. This is reminiscent of the golden hour lighting that photographers aim for at sunset. But it also heightens the drama of the moment as half of Manny's face is lit, while the other half is in shadow. Manny's eye line goes toward upper screen left as he watches the filming of a scene off screen. In cinematic shot number 5, we see Jack Conrad stepping into a scene that is being filmed on location at sunset. The camera lens is likely a longer lens, compressing the space between Jack in the foreground and the blurred out background terrain behind him. The golden hour lighting comes from the sunset from upper screen right, adding an edge light to Jack, while the bounce light from the ground fills in any shadows. We see Jack juxtaposed against the majestic, expansive terrain behind him, which creates this epic feel as he performs for the camera. In cinematic shot number 6, we get a wider shot of the environment as Jack Conrad acts in the scene. No one character is the specific focus, as we see Jack, the accompanying actress, the film crew, and the film orchestra and crew sprawled across the terrain. The golden hour light from the sunset dominates the frame, making all the characters appear in silhouette, whether they are in the foreground upper plane or in the midground lower plane. Lens flares fill the frame due to the sunlight pouring directly toward the camera. The camera is also elevated higher up in the vertical plane, tilted downward to show the sheer scale of the filmmaking operation, capturing all the energy and preparation involved with making the film. It tells us a lot about how Hollywood was operating at this time. In cinematic shot number 7, we cut in closer to Jack Conrad as he performs for the camera with an actress. The golden hour lighting makes everyone appear in silhouette, taking away the personal details of each character. Instead, we see them as iconic symbols in this epic background, creating the magical atmosphere that the film crew is trying to capture. The framing of the shot helps us to imagine if we were actually there at the location, watching the scene unfold. In cinematic shot number 8, we return to the scene where Nellie is acting on camera for her first film, but this time the camera is closer to her eye level. We can see the perspective lines of the background set directing our eyes toward her face. The background set is slightly out of focus, once again helping us to zero in on Nellie's acting. The stage lights don't appear in the frame this time. As viewers, we are cued to imagine if we are right there with Nellie, experiencing this emotional moment with her. There are fewer on-camera distractions, suggesting that we're on a film set. Nellie is staged in a three-quarter view, with her eyeline looking down towards screen left, and we're drawn into the emotions she's experiencing. There also is a slightly diffuse lighting effect created behind Nellie, adding to the wistful nature of the scene. In cinematic shot number 9, we return to Jack Conrad and the actress on location filming their scene as the sun sets behind them. Similar to previous shots from the scene, we barely see personal details on their faces. Instead, we see them more in silhouette, making them appear as iconic characters. A longer camera lens is likely being used, limiting the view of the environment between them. The camera is closer to the eye level of Jack and the actress, cueing us to imagine if we were in the same space as them. The golden hour lighting takes away details of the background terrain, so we end up seeing more silhouette shapes, turning the environment into a more abstract surrounding for Jack and the actress as they perform a romantic moment on camera. So overall, the cinematic shots in Babylon reflect various aesthetic decisions that the filmmakers made in order to convey key story beats. The design of a cinematic shot involves many different elements that can be considered as ingredients to compose evocative, meaningful shots that are part of the storytelling process.